And Happy New Year to everybody. It's good to see everyone, and of course our kids that we're recognizing this evening. Thank you for coming out. We will go ahead and start our meeting with roll call.
Mrs. Berger?
Here.
Dr. Savignano?
Here.
Mrs. Slate?
Here.
Mrs. Stricker?
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Here.
Okay, and we'll start off by our recognition of guests portion of our meeting. So welcome everyone. We'll turn it over to Dr. Stacy.
All right, first of all, thanks for coming out. I know it's a cold night, but it's always a pleasure to recognize students. One of the most important things that I think we get to do as a board. Tonight we have several because our programs continue to expand. I want to start with recognizing the overall band for their 10th state championship this year. I'll specifically come back to Austin and Jacob just a second, but as far as an institution, I can't tell you what it provides us to have a band that does well when you also have athletic teams do well. It's a balance, right? So it really gives us the opportunity as a board and superintendent to really say that balance that these students provide us as band members really goes a long way to setting a well-balanced and well-rounded institution. So I can't tell you how much I, as the superintendent, appreciate that. But I also want to specifically, because we're going through a lot of students from other areas, I want to specifically bring up two guys. Austin, Jacob, can you guys specifically come up here just for a second? Because you know, you're like the students, like we got to put you on. Right? You can't just hide in the back. All right, so I will say that these two young educators and musicians, along with their staff, oh man, she put him right out. She said no. All right, probably came into one of the hardest positions to fill in the state of Kentucky for band directors, and together, they looked like they may have qualified for graduate school at the time. But I honestly, I poke at him a little bit, especially Jacob. Even though I now got to poke at him, I got to let go of that because he's now senior, and we got some even younger people. But I just really want to publicly brag on these two and their extended staff for all the time, the effort, the precision, because to run a great show, you not only have to have the visual side, but you have to have the music and the precision of the music. So what a great job these two young educators do, and I'll say as a superintendent, I hope they stay here for all of my days and even more. So gentlemen, publicly, thank you for all the work and time and effort that you two and your staff put into Beechwood and all of these students. So.
Thank you.
As an old coach and an old jock, you never know how much band directors put in until you watch it with your own two eyes or experience it on yourself. It's a very long stretch. So they deserve all of that and much more. So on top of the band winning their 10th state championship and adding that to our repertoire as an institution, we also have quite a few individual students that we would like to acknowledge. As I call up a group, I think I've asked Ms. Schobel and Ms. Giles to help me. If we could find a spot with a decent background, ladies, if you all would help me take a picture of each group so we can post, that would be amazing. KMEA, all high school, all state band. We have three individuals to recognize. Ethan Mahoney. Ethan, if you'll come up. A tenor saxophone. Brady Thompson, trumpet. And Matthew Izor for the beast, the tuba. All right, so great job, guys. bump you, and then we'll give your medals tomorrow. So.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Good job.
All right, the Kentucky Band Organization Middle School All-State Band members, Julian Sandberg, clarinet, Catherine Lillard, trumpet, Jack Izor for the trombone, and Audrey Rose, trombone. All right,
One more.
Oh, you got a lot deep. You got some stuff to work with there. All right. Band directors do also like their sousaphones and those big, loud. See, I know too much about this. All right. Also tonight, in addition to the band, we're recognizing. Where's Miss Ross? Is Miss Ross here? Miss Ross, come on up here. You too. Yeah, come on. Come on. These guys know I don't brag too often. I do succumb to a little bit the John Wooden. You don't always get recognized for doing your job. But I will say, Ms. Ross, I think my first time I did recognitions for All-State or KMEA Choir, we had 2 applicants. And tonight we have way more than that. So there is no doubt in my mind that you have grown our program and expanded our program. And I know you're salivating a little bit over that auditorium and some of the things that you can do with it. And I absolutely don't blame you. So publicly, I would also like to recognize Ms. Ross and all the time that she puts in. The only thing, we got to come up with some avenue because you started my Christmas like in October. All right. So for you all that are through the building, Ms. Ross has her choir and the auditorium, so we get to listen well in advance of some of her shows. KMEA All-State Choir, we have several. First, Landon Gleason. Emma Hetzel. Brandon Honorlaw. Ash Nordman. Emma Sperber. Lindsay Thurber. And Robert Wilkie. All right, guys. All right, KMEA Junior High All-State Choir, Will Heiner. Hudson Farney. Joy Scott. Sylvia Wessel. Yap. Cohen Yap.
Congratulations.
All right, and finally, but definitely not last, our least, KMA Children's All-State Choir. We have Emma Ehlers. Claire Ankrum. Mackenzie Counts. And Violet Minerberg. All right, good job.
Congratulations.
So I'd like to reiterate again on band and choir. Anytime you have a strong, well-rounded institution, you want your performing and your fine arts programs to be as strong as any other program in the district. And what a representation of that tonight for our board and our community, because I know our board has invested quite a bit just during my time into these programs, and currently have about a $4 million facility that's part of this next project, and right there are the reasons why they continue to invest in these programs. What a great job by our staff and our students, and that's represented by that number of all-state choir and band members, along with that 10th state championship. So definitely want to keep our program strong in all of our areas, especially our performing arts. So parents, thank you for bringing your child out tonight. Students, thank you for the efforts and time that you put in after school. I know by also being a band dad that the amount of time that you guys put in both of these avenues of both singing and playing is quite extensive, but what a great job you've done in representing the institution, so thank you very much. Board, anything that you want to add?
It was very impressive
proud of you
that we
guys.
had this many, and so
Great work.
congratulations, and congratulations to the parents, because you guys do an awesome fundraising. I am constantly seeing and participating in signs in my yard and everything. Thank you, Dwight. But yes, so you guys do an awesome job, so thank you.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
You're all more than welcome. As students, your advisors will have medals for recognition tomorrow. Just with COVID, we've tried to lessen the individual contact. So please see me tomorrow or Miss Reed, and we'll get your individual awards. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. If you're welcome to stay, you're also welcome to.
Give them a few minutes.
Oh,
Give them a few
yeah.
minutes.
Mr. Radford? Hey, I want you on that list next year, boy.
What?
That's Jason. Yeah, I lived with. Oh.
What? Okay, now we'll go ahead and continue on with our meeting. This is the first of the year, so we go through a reorganization as a board. And at this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Stacy to reorganize the board.
All right, I'd like to open the floor for nominations for board chair of the Beechwood Board of Education.
I would like to nominate Noreen Sullivan for board chair.
Second.
Any other nominations? Not seeing any further nominations. Ms. Reed will call for a vote.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, with that being the case, I now turn the meeting back over to our 2022-23 Board Chair, Ms. Noreen Sullivan.
Yeah.
I'd like to open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I will make a nomination for Ron Savignano to be the board chair.
I'll second
Vice
that.
chair.
You ready? Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes. I'd like to now open the nomination for board secretary.
I'll make the motion to nominate Dr. Stacy for board secretary.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes. Now I'd like to open the nominations for board treasurer.
I'll nominate Mrs. Ward for board treasurer.
I will second that.
Oh, I'll second.
Oh, you'll second? Okay.
Sorry, I was making notes.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes. And, let's see, it's time to set the regular board meetings, dates, times, and locations. In the past, we've done the second Monday of the month for our board meetings at 6 o'clock here in the cafe. Does anybody have any other suggestions?
Works for me.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we continue with the second Monday of the month, 6 o'clock start time for our board meetings.
I'll second.
And then that would also indicate, Ron,
The
that
working meeting as well.
would be the fourth.
Fourth Monday.
All right. And the location would still be we're still fine with the cafeteria.
Yes.
All right.
The work session's the second motion.
Oh, working, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm so sorry, Ron.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Ready, Mrs., was there any more discussion? No. Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Time to set the work sessions. Would anybody like to?
I'll make the motion to make it the, is it the fourth Monday
Monday.
of the month?
Same date, time, and location, right? Or same time and location?
Yes. In the cafeteria, 6 o'clock.
I'll second.
All right. Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Now I'd like to make,
Hang on one second.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Although, when you guys are proposing times, since you're good on it, it might be moved now, but right now, the school board meeting and the city council meetings are the same second Monday at 6 o'clock.
It's always been like that.
Yeah, it's like, I know it's something I've talked to Greg Porter about as well, it's like, when that comes up, I go, for you guys to alternate or try to do something to coordinate, would have been pretty nice to try to be able to get both.
Sure.
Okay.
I'd like to take nominations for our finance reviewer.
I would like,
I was thinking to nominate Amy.
that's what I was
do-
gonna
yeah.
say.
To do, it's just a good way
Yeah.
to get to know what things are out there and bills and the budget and all that. so.
Yeah. And if you need help, I will,
Thank you.
I've done it for a while, so I'm more than happy to help you out.
It's been,
Thank
we've all
you.
done it.
Yeah.
It's been a,
Yeah.
it's always a good.
Kind of learn where the money goes, which
Yeah.
is
Right.
nice to know.
Right.
Mhm. Do we need a second on that?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Melanie?
second.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, on to our next item is the proposed school calendar. We had our first look at it last month, and was wondering if there are any questions about it? It's very similar to what we've had in the past. The only big difference is that there's an extra day during Christmas break because of the holiday falling on, New Year's falling. The holiday we celebrated on Monday, so we will be starting school one day earlier than we normally would do.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the 2022-2023 proposed school calendar.
I'll second.
All right, so the one question I had, we still want to publish, even though they would still be drafts at 23-24 and 24-25, for parents to be able to look at? Okay,
With a disclaimer.
with the disclaimer, that's correct. And we pretty much stayed to the same, like Noreen said, we pretty much stayed to the same format. I think it's very nice to try to have a consistent format and make calendar a non-issue. But you know, you can only officially approve one calendar at a time, so you can make changes at any time to the other two.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the comprehensive school improvement plan for the high school. Do I have a,
I'll make the motion to approve the comprehensive school improvement plan for the high school.
Second.
All right, and I will be very upfront, and I've done this every year. When you have a three-year strategic plan that's been worked on from board retreat to SPDMs to admin and then back and forth, that tends to be our working document for our day-to-day operations. However, the state does not see Beechwood's three-year strategic plan as an official document, so therefore our schools and our district are required to go through the process of submitting a comprehensive improvement plan, even though the requirements of the state may not match our 3-year. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, that this is a requirement for the state, and we're more than happy to do it. But when it comes down to our day-to-day operations, that 3-year strategic plan that you all have helped to be a part of is kind of our day-to-day working document. Any specific questions for Mr. Kaiser or Ms. Schobel?
No.
None.
All right.
Ready? Ms. Stricker? Or Mrs.
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
Going out of order.
We're going backwards.
Trying to see if you're awake.
You guys are
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes again?
Mrs. Sullivan?
yes.
Sorry.
Okay, we're going to move on to the comprehensive school improvement plan for the elementary school.
I'll move to approve the comprehensive district improvement plan for elementary.
I'll second.
Same thing, unless you have specific questions for Mr. Ashley, I'll step out of the way.
No.
No, we're good.
Ready? Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, our next item is the comprehensive district improvement plan. I'll take a motion.
I'll go ahead and make the motion for the comprehensive district improvement plan, CDIP.
I'll second it.
And I'll just add that from a district standpoint, if we can survive a building project and COVID, I really don't worry about any of it. You know my top priorities. We discuss them on a regular basis. But if you have any specific questions, Ben or I'll be more than happy to answer.
Any discussion?
Ready? Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, our next item is the student accident insurance.
I'll move to approve the renewal of student accident insurance.
I'll second.
All right, guys, this is something I think I've bragged on ever since we put it back in place. I think we've always had it, but Roberts, I think, has a much better comprehensive plan for us. Very few boards take out an accident insurance on every student. So it's one of the things that I really appreciate, along with the student transportation. It's basically a flat cost from last year, so that's why I went ahead and put it on for your consideration. Again, that provides extra benefits for any student in the district, and it also, I think, does a great job covering you guys for catastrophic issues as well.
Have incident and doing the like renewal, have you checked incidents of like how many? Or?
I have checked the incidents. I mean, unfortunately, some of the areas that we've had trouble before are in pretty good shape. And since my first year, we really haven't had a lot of knee issues for football. This year, we had a lot of knee issues for football. I mean, we had three injuries in that area. So I think 2 years ago it was cheerleading. This year, cheerleading has gotten better every time, but this year football did have three pretty significant knee injuries.
Okay. Any?
Ready?
Yep.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Salvadano?
Yes?
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes.
I will say, just in closing, that is something that if we ever got really tight, that we could look at, students picking up on their own. But as long as we have the opportunity, I do appreciate that you guys putting money towards that. I mean, a small piece of it is for your catastrophic.
Correct.
But yet, a very large piece of it is to supplement parents' insurance.
Okay, our next agenda item is the 2022-2023 draft budget. Anybody like to
I'll make the motion to approve the, sorry, I'll make the motion to approve the 2022-23 budget.
It's just.
Or no, this is
You
just
would-
informational.
Oh, it's just
Just
the first
information.
reading? Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that I can tell you, even though it's an early on peek at the budget. Number one, today we were notified by the city that the Christ's location out by Trek Bicycle has been moved to a non-taxable entity. So they asked for $150,000 to be returned. So they had already paid their tax bill for the year. So that's $150,000 that we had to put in today to pull out of the budget. And we're going to make a couple of follow-ups just to try to figure out what changed to make that a different type of institution.
Why wouldn't we get a heads up on that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, any kind of notification or anything, and who would that come from?
Yeah, so it came from the state PVA office to the city because they're our tax collection agent. Tax collection agent typically, if something is adjusted, just pulls that out of future payments. But because of the amount, they like, okay, it's already January. A lot of people in the Fort Mitchell have already paid their taxes, so they were afraid they wouldn't have enough to generate a payment back to Christ. So they submitted to us for full payment at one time. That's a little harsh, but at the same time, if they found an area to be a tax exempt entity, I mean, they're going to want their tax payment back. We did not write a check or cut a check today. We'll go through a process of verifying and double checking and trying to figure out exactly what happened to change that status.
Do we think we should reach out to somebody at Christ to make sure they want us to make that, continue
Well,
that
they
not so good
submitted the
PR
application,
decision?
so,
It would not look real good that they're
Yeah.
$150,000
Yeah.
from us.
maybe we can hit them up real good for the gala. I don't know. But I'll follow up. But they submitted the application, so obviously they're wanting to take advantage of whatever area or loophole they found.
And was that submitted to the county?
But I think
the
we need
It
to
would have
make
been
sure-
submitted to the state, as the state PVA office. And they, what's the specific category?
It was 170, and it says a charitable organization, so I read up some more on this.
Yeah.
I didn't really get to talk to anybody yet.
Charitable or
charitable organization, I don't know if it's new code, it didn't seem like it was new, but the definition of a charitable organization has been broadened to anything that provides, I should have brought the actual wording of it, but it's anything that provides, promotes mankind of some sort. It's really very broad. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly, but, so a lot of things could fall in that category, and hospitals are one of them.
I think 23 Beechwood supports mankind by
Yeah.
putting all the signs. In all seriousness, it was I mean, I'm laughing about it tonight. I was not laughing this morning.
Yeah.
$150,000 for
Right.
Beechwood would
It's a
be
lot.
over $2 million in Boone County, or that's a lot of money. So I'll touch base with Jeremy, have him look over everything as well. We'll try to look at every aspect of it. We're not just going to cut a $150,000 check without doing due diligence.
I think we need to make sure all the right people in their organization understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only
Because
thing we
that does
found,
not make, that
Yes.
would not make good press for.
I agree,
Yes.
but the only thing we found with Christ, because they're across the river, they don't quite have the same,
Ties to the
connection
community.
to the community.
Right.
But
But
if
they
you,
still wouldn't want to see a newspaper article that
They're
said
trying to
Christ
get a
Hospital
connection
takes
in the community. That's why they moved
150,000
here.
from Beechwood High School.
They're trying to be in the community, that's why they
Right.
moved here.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
trying.
I think we need to make sure that everyone in their organization really understands, and it's not, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's
I will
doing.
do my absolute best, because in all honesty, that is
Because it's kind
about,
of shocking.
we're not too far away on that dollar amount from being a step increase. That's a big dollar amount for us.
What's the timeline to have that paid?
Oh,
I didn't see any day. I mean, obviously they'll come back for it if we don't,
Right.
But we'll do our due diligence. Like I said, I'll have Jeremy do some work as well, to make sure, that we do our best effort. And Melanie, I see what you're saying. I'll try my best without doing something that I'm not necessarily able to do, but I'll look at that. We did assume, you do see the assumptions in the far right-hand corner. We did assume the tax, or the step increase. We did assume that the continue to be the contribution for CRS would continue to rise. I don't see that changing, although depending on which budget gets passed, I mean, that theoretically could be put back into the budget. And then, we basically are looking at a flat, we assumed a flat for SEEK. And I know there are some budget languages that could change that, but for your first draft, we're obviously going to assume the worst. So you see the carry is a little down. I mean, that's also, like I said, assuming, what happened today, that's where we would put that loss. Second and third page, just a couple of things to point out. Our certified positions, as far as pay, has gone up a little bit since 2019. One area to look at that is that's not necessarily addition of a lot of staff. We have added a couple since 19, but as our staff continues to age up in that growth of salaries, that obviously has an impact. One thing that I have noticed here that's very interesting, we seem to have a lot of staff on the two sides of the bell. We have a ton of staff under 10, and we have a ton of staff that are 24, 25, 23, 24, 25, 26 years. So there's a lot of information in that we deal with on a regular basis. But for us, as an institution, we are looking at potential retirements over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That definitely has an impact. General fund expenses are up a little bit as well, about $300,000. That also, from a big picture number, again, don't forget that we're at 1,500 students now compared to what we were in 19. Other than that, I think the budget looks pretty clean. A couple other things that I just want to point out. before I turn it over to Ms. Ward, that she wants to point out anything. We are still seeing COVID costs from COVID and supply chain. Those are real, and you know, we are, and when we're in session every day, we do go through quite a few supplies, food, and other purchases. So as a check reviewer, Ms. Sleet will definitely see a little bit increase in costs across the board than what Ms. Sullivan saw over the past year. If that, which looking at projections, if that continues over the next 2 to 3 years and continues to be something, it will be enough of a cost impact that we will have to look at some type of budget adjustment. So I just want to make sure I can continue to point that out. The COVID costs and the fact that we didn't get a lot of ESSER money, right, versus what it cost us to reopen last year. Well, we're not setting in a shape like many school districts where we're setting on millions of ESSER money, trying to figure out how to spend over the course of the next 18 to 24 months. And that's where a lot of situations are, and you know, good for them, but we're not in that situation. If COVID continues for 2 to 3 years, we will have to make a budget adjustment to address those increased costs.
Do you really think expenses will ever go down? I mean,
I think you're starting to see a transition in some of the guidance. I mean, you know, my personal belief as someone who runs a business is eventually we'll have to transition on how to live more with the virus. And potentially that could, you know, bring things back into, you know, less of a burden as far as finances. But I don't see it being a short-term fix. I think we will continue to see increased costs for some time. And you know how it is, even if something changes or gets better, that it takes a while for those costs to come back, and sometimes in some cases they never do. And that's what we're trying to all figure right now. You know, is this, you know, are some of these costs new, the new normal? You know, even energy costs. I mean, Duke, I got energy costs. I don't know if you've noticed in your own home bill, but
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
right,
We all
Right.
have. I just got mine.
right. So, I mean, you know, I look at the square foot that we run on a regular basis. Our energy bill was, whew, I thought something had happened in January. But
Yeah,
Duke
unfortunately, they're saying the supply chain issues are gonna be into 2023.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was a
Hope they're wrong.
significant increase at home and here. So I know I don't have the most airtight home in Fort Mitchell, but it was, I noticed it. Quite a bit at home, but here, and we're open 24/7, right? I mean, so here, we definitely saw a pretty significant impact. I just want to be very upfront. We've worked really, really hard to get this budget into a really good position. I just want to be really upfront and continue to try to show you where pros and cons are going to come from. Any specific questions? And again, this is just the very beginning glimpse.
Yeah, very beginning.
So, in regard to the state budget in the SEEK, they're talking about an increase in SEEK. I mean, you think that will, even though we're considered a SEEK loser, do you think that's gonna still help us? Or do you think
Yeah, I
we'll
mean,
get it?
it'll still help us, absolutely. I mean, I project if the House budget goes through, we would be looking at about $250,000. I mean, ish, I mean, it's just a guesstimate of increase if it, in the 2-year biennium, not the first year. So maybe a 125 and 125, because yeah, a straight addition to the SEEK, even though we don't get 41 and 42, we get much less than that. I do see that going up. The governor's budget, it would go up significantly. I mean, significantly, because any time that they put direct money in, that's not our money going, and then you know, that's not the movement of the SEEK. That's just a direct infusion to the formula. So I think if they do that, we will see an increase. However, if we look at 125 over two bienniums to be at 250, We were really going to celebrate that until I walked in this morning and had a loss of 150. Right, so I mean, that's, and I think that's where the average person doesn't always see the razor thin line that we deal with as a very small place, right? In my former lives, if something happened with 150, we would mourn for a second and probably not even do the follow-up to double check it. I mean, because we're talking about, you know, a much larger differential. When you take our property taxes and you take our property taxes, take our seat money, right, and you pay salaries and debt service, we have a razor thin line that we deal with after that. And that's where everything has to come from. And that's when we make savings to maintenance like we did my first couple of years, then you're in a great shape. But, you know, we're just not at that spot right now. Now, I will say if they were to do all-day preschool, as well as K, because all-day K gave us some. So, I mean, we have the potential to benefit enough to cover the 150 and maybe look at some type of incentive that I know you all have been, you know, potentially looking at. Good thing is, this is our worst case scenario, and then I don't see us taking a major loss through the budget, which is a win. So by the time this session's over, we should have a really good idea of what's coming to us by the time we get into that season of making adjustments for next year. Sorry, I went a little, is there anything you want to add?
No. I stole my thunder, but that's right.
That was thunder, I'd hate to see the lightning. I mean, honestly,
No.
you need to tell them, like, if I'm on the right track from your vantage
No, because
point.
that's what we discussed. I mean, that's what we discussed this morning. I really do feel like we need to think about, like, well, I mean, I just think about everything we were just talking about. Everything's going up because of the supply chain issues. And I don't know if it's long-term or short-term or what, but I feel like that's driving costs up for our razor-thin budget, because that's not even salaries we're talking about. And, you know, just think about the impact that trickles down when you go to the grocery store, when you do anything. It's eating into your budget, and you're trying to support these people here. So it just all it's a domino effect. So I feel like we have to start thinking about what we're going to do about that as we move forward and how we're going to manage it. I think that's what you said. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to start thinking, and then, you know, I just hope we don't get to the point, and we'll work really hard to where, to add something, we're having to pull something, you know, and plan a shift. I mean, because over the next 5 years, right, we're looking at least 1 to 2 bus purchases. You're looking at the lower field with the traffic that it gets, 5 years will be 11 years. The upper field, I think, will maintain for longer other than the infield, but we're already, which that's crazy, that we're already in year 7. We're moving into year 7 on the lower field. But, you know, that time passes, you know, so now costs for replacement has to be factored in as well. And, you know, luckily we have those replacement funds, and you know, that we'll work it out. All right, that's all, and that's not a vote, right? Because that's just a draft, correct information.
Just for review.
Okay, on to the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I will second that.
The only thing I'll point out is you have the pay for the monthly installment. I will give you a heads up that we are looking at a potential change order for February that will be significant, but I want to explain. We need to take a piece out of phase 2 and put into phase 1 because we need them to start on it before right at the end of the year. PA, phone, all of those things that we need to have school. We can't wait until August or to June to start on those. So We'll be pulling that, some of those portions out of Phase 2, making a change order to Phase 1, and that way they can go ahead and start that work as soon as possible.
Okay.
That is not on this agenda, but that will be on next agenda, and anytime we say those words, I like to give as much a heads up as possible. Everything else on the consent agenda is pretty straightforward.
Okay, anybody have anything they want to pull out, or?
No?
Nope.
Okay.
Ready? Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Salviniano?
Yes?
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Now on to the superintendent's report.
All right, well, the finance report, I'm going to say that was covered in the draft budget discussion. There is one item that I would like to put in front of you that I apologize is a surprise. It is not something that we talked about before, but as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, the state has made a change to the Kentucky Department of Public Health's guidance that if you are masked, you no longer are required to do close contact tracing in school. When you're masked, it is 3 feet instead of 6 feet, so there's not a lot of close contact to begin with. But second of all, and as we've seen here, our number of positives that come from close contact from school is relatively small. I think over the last 21 months that we've been close contact tracing, which we did in the beginning part, but over the whole phase of the pandemic, we've had 5 positives other than this last week in preschool, 5 positives over that whole course of time from in-school contact. Our problem continues to be outside of school. Any type of party, any type of social gathering, any type of a large, especially a large number in a more confined space without residential. Your residential HVAC turns the air over in your house at least once a day. This room right here turns the air over 4 times every hour. So I'm not an expert in any of this, but we have seen that commercial ventilation, there's something different there, right? Numbers just don't add up. So the state put new guidance out today. We would like to go ahead and adopt that guidance immediately. You all basically allowed, but I just wanted to put it on tonight. That would put us in a situation where we would still have test to stay. We would still close contact lunch because students are unmasked. We'll still close contact mask exemptions because they are not masked. And then there would be some situations with extracurriculars that we would also be responsible for as well. I don't think our numbers show anything different. I know that we've seen a spike over this last week, but I'll still say the vast majority of that came from one social setting, and it just just grew exponentially as the week went along because a lot of the kids were here and were asymptomatic and had no idea that they were positive. And that's what we've seen with this last variant, as with students or with vaccinated staff. They're either completely asymptomatic or they have slight cold-like symptoms. So most of our kids didn't do anything wrong. They just had no clue that they were positive. So our plan is to absolutely stay in school. I want to publicly say that NTI is not an acceptable alternative for this institution or our students. I have no intention of moving towards NTI. I don't think that the vast number of our community, staff, students, I want that under any circumstance. If a new variant were to approach and the circumstances change, then obviously we would have that discussion. But as it stands right now, that is not something we're looking at. So we will stay masked, except for our mask exemptions, and we will close contact anytime that students are out of mask. We'll have all that.
So no more letter like of exposure or whatever if you're masked, is that the?
That is correct. The way I recognize, and go ahead, you can speak.
It would be a small possibility.
Yeah, from lunch From like
From lunch, or
Lunch.
if you're not, I mean, if
the
you have a mass
mass
exemption.
exemptions, extracurriculars, you know, those are still, now, and we'll see, I mean, because we don't want to do anything that's not, if we're starting to see transmission in school, then we'll reevaluate. But like I said, I can work through all the positives other than preschool when we weren't in a non-mask issue. Our transmission still, vast majority have been in social settings outside of school. And that has been consistent. That is no change with this variant and any other variant. The vast majority of transmissions have happened in social settings. And you know, we're at a point to where we can't even, I mean, really be harsh about some social settings. I mean, kids continue to want to have some normalcy. I get that. I guess I would suggest that really large events indoors, but we'll have that typed up out to you guys tomorrow. I will share it with you guys before sending it public. But just look for that first thing in the morning. But if you don't have any problems tonight, we will go ahead and make that change and move forward.
Makes sense.
All right, last thing, as far as my report and trying to continue our ongoing presentations. And again, SPDM joint meeting on Monday the 24th. I think this is a really important work session with the SPDM. But Mr. Ashley's going to update us on the EDGE update in the elementary school.
So just a couple quick things. Last month, I believe it was, you heard from the high school. Their focus was more on department days and updating you in that way. On the elementary side, we talk a lot about more grade level talk than department talk. And so one of the things that I mentioned in our initial presentation from the elementary school was the embedding of the core concepts from our EDGE program. One of the things that we talk about as a team on a consistent basis is that what we're doing for kids is extremely valuable at all levels. And so when you hear about some of these other programs that are happening in other places and other districts, one of the things that we continue to hold to as very valuable is that we started at preschool and kindergarten and build it from there. And it's all kids. So it's not a specific track. It's not a specific middle school or high school only program. Our partnerships, for example, that we hear about, people coming in. Ms. Giles is actually going to talk a little bit more specific here in a second. We're going to share tonight. But Poseidon Pizza, for example, is a partner that's coming in to work with 4th grade. So partnerships are starting when kids are 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and kids are getting to do real world, real life things that we're really excited about. So at the end of this, there's a link to the CSIP, but we're probably not going to spend any time on that unless you want specifics, since you already approved it. But there's the language about proficiency and gap and increasing our numbers on state testing. That's all in the CSIP, and we've checked all those boxes, so we can look at that a little bit if you want. I know this is hard to read on the screen, but the EDGE core concepts in the elementary school, this is kind of laid out from the beginning of the year. And the product review timeline, we've already hit one of the challenges. I was kind of expecting challenge 1 to be really rough because it's the first time we've done it. Teachers have worked really hard. Last year, during kind of the beginning of the pandemic, we were still working on some of this stuff, laying the foundation. And so you can see that challenge 1 was submitted October. Basically, we build these into our grade level team meetings so we can keep an eye on things, monitor things, hold each other accountable. And I was blown away. I think we were all blown away. Every grade level did an excellent job. 1 or 2 grade levels, a little bit more room for growth than others. But we were really pleased with the results. Challenge 2 is actually this Thursday, or it says the 7th, I know, but we had to move it back a week for a variety of reasons. But that process, you go through student self-reflection, teacher self-reflection, teachers looking at student products, which you're going to get to see a quick example of tonight, and then the year in review. But this thing goes from 3rd graders creating 3D models, digital Time magazine covers. A lot of this has gone digital, so a lot of the products that you'll see are not necessarily your typical dioramas anymore. Nothing wrong with dioramas. We all did those. But updating that, if you will. But more importantly than the project itself is the process itself. And so the kids and the skills that they're getting with, sustained inquiry and, critical thinking and all the different pieces of collaboration along the way are where we find real value. And the teachers are finding ways to sort of embed that in what they already do. But it's not just simply putting, a project-based learning, we're tagging something on to, the end of a unit or something like that. It's literally built in, and the kids, we're already seeing the benefits from it. So we've only done one round. Like I said, round 2 is this week on this timeline. And I think that's all of my part. Ms. Giles is going to come talk about a couple of things, and as she talks, I'm going to click. So feel free to ask questions about specifics. We can get as deep into the weeds as you'd like, but we're excited about what's happening, and we think that it's already showing benefits for students and teachers.
Like Mr. Ashley mentioned, going back to the timeline, our goal was this year to do 4 challenges throughout the year at each grade level. We are going to be reviewing our second challenge on Thursday. But what I'd like kind of to show you the process that we did with the teachers. The first link on here is the student reflection around the core concepts. Obviously, we're not just going to hand a reflection over to the students. So it's breaking it down to the students so that they know what does it look like to exceed expectation, what does it look like to meet expectation, and some guiding questions. Self-reflection is hard for everybody, so especially for kids. It's breaking it down for them, having some guided questions so that when they're assessing themselves and they're reflecting on their work, they know what that means. They know what it looks like. One really surprising thing for us is that for the first challenge, when we sat down and we were looking at the student reflections, a lot of them were harder on themselves than a peer would have been or the teacher would have been on her reflection towards their work. So I think that was really eye-opening. The reflection that the primary uses is a little bit different than the reflection that the intermediate uses. Vocabulary is pretty much the same. It's just the format of it obviously is more grade appropriate. So this is the first step for the kids, is breaking down that reflection sheet so that they know exactly what they're looking for when they're doing the self-reflection. The second link on there is a 6th grade challenge that Ms. Stevenson did with all of our 6th graders. Very real world. She was focusing on thinking critically and creatively. With this, she tasked all of them with giving them a set amount of money. Each student had $3,500. They worked in groups or they could work individually. I do think that the kids that chose to work individually, she did somewhat pair them up. They found quickly they didn't have enough money to travel like they wanted to on one single budget. But with their pot of money that they had to plan a trip. That trip had to include, was it airfare, was it gas, food, hotel stay, if they were going to specific attractions, all of that had to be calculated into it so that they were really, it's real world, they were working with a budget. They had to make cuts. They quickly found that they had to make cuts with some of their travel expenses. Once they planned their trip, they had to do an advertisement or some type of commercial. So that's what you'll see here. This was the slideshow that they put together to present to the class. So they had that presentation to the class. The second link that was on there, Zach, can you go back? Yeah, the second, no, go back to student work sample. I'm sorry, it's the second link on that drive. I guess it's the folder. I misspoke. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, okay, just scroll down. Oh, yes, that's it. Okay, so this was the, again, this front page was just the task that the kids were given with what their task was. And then as you scroll through here, you'll notice the students' reflection that they had. The math, they were doing it in a math class that tied to their standards, so it was very embedded into the instruction they were getting in class. In the group, each one of the partners did a self-reflection on their own. The second part of the reflection then was, what would they do differently? Again, the students were very honest. Some of them said, well, I would choose different partners next time. So we have but they did.
That's real
They
world.
rationalized it. So we have interests, so we're going to the same attractions. Other kids said, I would use my time more wisely. They were just very honest with their answers, but very serious. So that reflection piece was definitely there. Another thing with the challenges is when we sit down with the committee, the teacher also fills out a reflection. So it's the teacher reflecting back, how did the project work? What were some of the strengths? What were some of the weaknesses? Is it a challenge that we're going to move on to next year, or is it a challenge that, this one didn't work, I need to try something differently? So that reflection piece is just a huge part of EDGE challenges. The conversation around the student products, that's the main part of it. Mr. Ashley talked a little bit about our upcoming challenge, and we certainly wanted to share this with all of you. Ms. Ensweiler kicked this off today in 4th grade. They've been working on fractions, so they will be creating a digital pizza. She's partnered with Poseidon Pizza, the owners of Poseidon. They'll be coming in later in January. They will be judging which 4th grader they felt had the strongest presentation. Again, there's that advertisement piece. And then whatever pizza out of the 4th grade wins, they will be creating that pizza at Poseidon Pizza, and they'll be having a Beechwood night. On the menu, it will be called the Beechwood Pizza. And then part of the proceeds from that night will come back to the school.
Yeah.
So Mr. Lusk has worked really hard with helping to partner some of the teachers up with people out in the community, which has really helped with these challenges. So that's an upcoming one that we thought was really cool. We definitely wanted to showcase that.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little bit, about some of the challenges going on. Like Mr. Ashley said, this is just a 6th grade and a 4th grade challenge. We're doing them at all different grade levels. So.
One thing I'll add, as we continue to have these discussions, and I tell the admin group all the time, when you get tired of talking about something, that's when it's starting to make an impact, or starting to be grasped onto in the community. I feel like we've talked about EDGE a lot, but I think it's just starting to be grasped onto as a community. But I will say, in my time, it's nice to have the elementary here. That doesn't happen in a lot of curriculum design, to start looking at how does that impact all the way down to kindergarten, pre-K, and how does that build up, because our premise still is holding to the same. We can't change outcomes in high school if we start trying to change outcomes in high school. And at the same time, I want to reiterate to the board that even though we're adding creativity and collaboration and all of these other core concepts into our curriculum, that's not taken away from our focus on academic outcomes in math, science, social studies, and language arts. We just believe that we can maintain those outcomes without having 7 hours of seat time.
I didn't bring math scores, but they're really good.
Okay. Right.
We'll look at those this spring.
Right. So, by having the data systems in place, we can still monitor data. We can still monitor the kids' outcomes in a very specific way while we're embedding these different activities into place. And I really don't care what side of the spectrum or who the kid is. 7 hours of back-to-back seat time is very difficult for a learning process. And, even if we looked at a college environment, that length of time from a sitting standpoint is just not present. So we'll continue to work on those goals, and we'll continue to work on those outcomes, and trying to maintain focus on that with everything else going on has been a challenge. But I do appreciate both buildings and our staffs and both buildings maintaining a focus of outcomes in the midst of a difficult situation. Any other questions for me or the elementary? We will have that joint session, and I will put out an agenda to you guys ahead of time for your review.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to make the agenda part of the official board minutes.
I'll make the motion to make the agenda part of the official board minutes.
Second. Berger.
Thanks for the reminder, I'm sure.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Saviano?
Yes.
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, any other business? Anybody have anything? they
Yeah, I'd
want-
like to publicly thank Jeannie for her years of service as board chair.
Thank you.
Having done that role, I know how it
Yeah.
is.
Yes.
I know, it feels a little good, actually.
Yeah.
I hate to say that. I mean, I've enjoyed doing it, but it's just kind of like,
It's a lot.
yeah, it's, so.
Yes, thank you.
And
It's
congratulate
been a-
Noreen on your new
Yes.
role.
Yeah, she'll do great. It'll be good.
Yes, thank you. It's been a difficult few years here, so
Yeah.
thank you for guiding us through that.
Yeah, thank you.
I will agree with that. And since it's Board Recognition Month, I'll just add on and say that I don't think most people understand the pressure that sometimes board members feel. And I keep reminding everyone that you're the only people in the entire district that receive no reimbursement for your time or efforts. I mean, you all truly are volunteer positions. So I appreciate Jeannie's time as chair. I appreciate Melanie's time as chair when she was here, and I'm sure I look forward to working with Noreen in the same capacity.
I did find, well, actually, my mother-in-law found plans from 1969 proposed board meeting. I gave them to Dr. Stacy with additions, and it had 2 libraries. It had an auditorium on it from 1969, so he's going to follow up and get. But
And I will say, just for the record, it changed the front of the building.
yes, it did.
Really?
I just want that
Really?
in the
Yeah.
minutes of the meeting. In 1969, they had changed the front of the building.
They did. They had the additions going out towards the street versus this coming this
Interesting.
way. It's interesting, and they took the parking lot where the soccer and stuff
Yeah.
is. That was a parking lot.
Oh.
Yep, it wasn't, you all are welcome.
I
I'm
dropped
gonna
them
try
off in
to
the
find
office,
them
so.
and get them digitally, because I think it is good for people to know, even
Yeah.
in
I'd love to
1969,
see
they
them.
were looking
It's
at an
taken us a few
auditorium
years
and
to
2
get there.
libraries.
Yeah, just a
Right.
couple.
But I just wanted to share that with everybody because,
That's
you know,
really
they've been
neat.
thinking about it this is not something that has just been, you know, in our time. I mean, I know when my older kids were younger, they'd been talking about it, and so it's just, I just wanted to share that with everybody because who knows what happens when you clean out your attic. She
Yeah.
told me, she goes, I found these plans, and I'm like, oh, well, let's look at them.
Really neat.
That's pretty
So,
cool.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys can take a look. Dr. Stacy's gonna find out some more info. Yeah, nothing else really.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I will second.
Ms. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Saviano?
Yes.
Ms. Slate?
Yes.
Stricker? Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Thank you.